Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Miss Moore.
We'll just do this so that before she gets started, we're going to get everybody seated.
Ready? I'm going to recite the story, The Pearl of Great Price, which is the last chapter in the book, The Other Wise Man, written by Henry Van Dyke. I'm doing this especially this morning for Martha and Mark Ward, whom I love so much. This book belonged to my mother. It's worn and yellow with age. When she was a young girl in Frankfort, Kentucky, she recited The Pearl of Great Price. So when I came along, she wanted me to do likewise. So on a Christmas Eve night in the year 1932, when I was 12 years of age, I recited this in my church, our church, in Louisville, Kentucky. I'll never forget that Christmas Eve. Mother had made me a red wool dress with puffed sleeves. And I thought that was the most beautiful dress I had ever seen. It was a very memorable Christmas Eve. When Henry Van Dyke wrote this book, he was not a young man. In fact, he was old, and he was sick, and he was lying in bed thinking about his life like having a pity party. The things he had wanted to accomplish in his life and had not done so. When all of a sudden, he jumped out of bed and started to write. And it was as if some higher being was guiding his hand. The words flowed from his pen, and he wrote the entire book in one sitting. This is a story of Artaban. Artaban had planned to meet the three wise men at a certain place at an appointed time and follow the star to where the Christ child was born. Artaban had three precious gems which he planned to give to the Christ child when he found him: a sapphire, a ruby, and a pearl. On the way to meet his friends to follow the star, he stopped to minister on the side of the road to a dying man. And in so doing, he parted with his sapphire. The three wise men felt that they could wait no longer for their friend Artaban, so they went without him. And Artaban has spent his entire life searching for the Christ child. He parted with his ruby to save the life of a boy child when Herod sent out the word that all male children were to be slain. So now, all he has left is the pearl of great price. 33 years of the life of Artaban had passed away, and he was still a pilgrim and a seeker after light. His hair, once darker than the cliffs of Zagros, was now as white as a wintry snow that covered them. His eyes that once flashed like flames of fire were now as dull as embers smoldering among the ashes. Worn and weary and ready to die, but still looking for the King, he had come for the last time to Jerusalem. He had often visited the holy city before, searched through all its lanes, crowded hovels, and dark prisons without finding any trace of the family of Nazarenes who had fled from Bethlehem so long ago. But now it seemed as if he must make one more effort, and something seemed to whisper in his heart that at last he might succeed. It was a season of the Passover. The city was thronged with strangers. Children of Israel from all over the world had returned for the great feast, and there had been a confusion of tongues in the narrow streets for many days. But on this day, there was a visual agitation visible in the multitude. The sky was veiled with a portentous gloom, and currents of excitement seemed to flash through the crowd like the thrill that shakes the forest of the eve of a storm. A secret tide was moving them all one way. The clatter of sandals and the soft, thick sound of thousands of bare feet shuffling along over the stones flowed unceasingly along the narrow street that led to the Damascus gate. Artaban joined company with a group of people from his own country, Parthian Jews, who had come up to keep the Passover, and had inquired of them the cause of the tumult and where they were going. "We're going," they answered, "to a place called Golgotha, outside the city wall, where there's to be an execution. Have you not heard what has happened? 2 famous robbers are to be crucified, and with them another called Jesus of Nazareth, who has done many wonderful works, so that the people love him greatly. But the priests and elders have said that he must die, because he gave himself out to be the Son of God. And Pilate has sent him to the cross, because he claimed to be the King of the Jews." How strangely these familiar words fell on the tired heart of Artaban. They had led him for a lifetime over land and sea, and now they came to him darkly and mysteriously, like a message of despair. Could it be the same who had been born in Bethlehem 33 years ago, at whose birth a star had appeared, and of whose coming the prophets had spoken? Artaban's heart beat unsteadily with that troubled, doubtful apprehension, which is the excitement of old age. But he said within himself, "The ways of God are stranger than the thoughts of men, and it may be that I shall find the king at last in the hands of his enemies, and shall come in time to offer my pearl for his ransom before he dies." So the old man followed the multitude with slow and painful steps toward the Damascus gate of the city. Just beyond the entrance to the guardhouse, a troop of Macedonian soldiers came down the street, dragging a young girl with torn dress and disheveled hair. As Imagine paused to look at her with compassion, she broke suddenly from the hands of her tormentors and threw herself at his feet, clasping him around the knees. "Have pity on me! Have pity on me! Save me for the sake of the God of purity. I too am a daughter of a true religion, taught by the Magi. My father was a merchant of Parthian, but he's dead, and I'm seized for his debts, to be sold as a slave." Artaban trembled. Was it his great opportunity or his last temptation? He could not tell. One thing only was clear to his divided heart. It was inevitable. And does not the inevitable come from God? One thing only was sure to his divided heart. To rescue this helpless girl would be a deed of true love. And is not love the light of the soul? Artaban took the pearl from his bosom. Never had it seemed so luminous, so radiant, so full of tender, living luster. He laid it in the palm of the slave. This is thy ransom, daughter. It is the last of my treasures, which I saved for the king. As he spoke, the walls of the sky thickened. Shuddering tremors ran through the earth, heaving convulsively like one who struggles with mighty grief. Walls fell to and fro, stones loosened and crashed into the street. Soldiers fled in terror, reeling like drunken men. Where Artaban and the girl whom he had ransomed crouched helpless beneath the wall of the praetorium. What had he to fear? What had he to live for? He had given away the last remnant of his tribute for the king. He parted with the last hope of finding him. His quest was over, and it had failed. But even in that thought, accepted and embraced, there was peace. It was not resignation. It was not submission. It was something more profound and searching. And Artaban knew that even if he could live his earthly life over again, it would not have been otherwise than it had been. One more lingering pulsation of the earthquake quivered through the ground. A heavy tile, shaken from the roof, fell and hit the old man upon the temple. He lay breathless and pale, with his white head resting against the young girl's shoulder, and the blood trickled from the wound. As she bent over him, fearing that he was dead, there came a voice through the twilight, very small and still. It was the notes were there, but the words were lost. The girl turned to see if someone had spoken from the window above, but she saw no one. Then the old man's lips began to move, as if in answer, and she heard him say in the Parthian tongue, "Not so, my lord, for when saw I thee a stranger, and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee, or in prison and came unto thee? 33 years have I looked for thee, but never have I seen thy face." He ceased, and the sweet voice came again, and again made heard. But this time, it seemed as though she understood the words. "Verily, verily, I say unto thee, inasmuch as thou hast done it unto one of the least of these thy brethren, thou hast done it unto me." A calm radiance of wonder and joy lighted the pale face of Artaban, like the first ray of dawn on a snowy mountain peak. One long, last breath of relief exhaled gently from his lips. His journey was ended. His treasures were accepted. The other wise men had found the King. Amen. And God bless.
Amen. What a treasure you are, and what a beautiful gift to share with all of us. Not just to hear the story, but to hear you say it fully present with us and sharing that gospel message. So thank you very much. What can you say after that? You know?